Afternoon. So I'm the CTO at Automate UK, and I'm supposed to talk about the technical side of the industry. But putting this together, so we talked about these numbers, and the robot density, depends on what year you pick, is always a little bit different, but we're lagging behind. What's really encouraging though is we've got a big pie to go towards. We've got 20,000 SMEs in the UK that aren't automating. We're not going to get all of them. As Oliver said earlier, there's the hanging fruit that we need to be working on, and there's a lot of money available, GDP, by 2035 that we need to go after. But is technology the issue? So as I say, I'm the CTO. I don't think technology is the issue. All of us in this room has proved that technology's there. Yeah, a lot of it's tried and tested. But what we need to go about is proven available today. Yeah, I think sometimes a lot of SMEs get really scared when we start talking about this is innovative, this is brand new, this is R&D. What they want to know is that this is tried and tested, down the road used it, we know it works. Yeah. And the bottleneck isn't that capability. Yeah, the bottleneck is adoption. Oh, there we go. So I've got 3 areas of barriers to talk about. So we've already mentioned skills gaps, and we've had some slightly different takes on it. So hopefully I can bring it together. But 50% of manufacturers cite skill shortages is a barrier. It's not necessarily in skills, yeah. It's in people able to automate, yeah. It's the knowledge of how to automate. There is a slight issue we have at the moment with the likes of AI and data science, where they're taking our engineers, yeah. I think everybody in this room loves the fact that we've got robots over there that are moving things around, flashing lights, noises, yeah. We all like to see the machine work for the first time, yeah. But there are some engineers that go, actually, I'm quite happy to sit in an air-conditioned office and just tap the keyboard all day. Yeah. But one of the biggest areas that we believe at Automate is the skills to adopt. So we've already seen return on investment, supplier selection, factory planning, finance. These are the skills that we need to foster within the SMEs within the UK to help us adopt more and better. We've mentioned funding, grants are available. So what I should say before I go through this is I'm a technical guy, yeah. So I will go over this from quite a high level, but grants are available, yeah. But the feedback we get is they're complicated. The R&D tax credits are, I've been told multiple times, yes, they're there, we can get them, but they're complicated. If we do it ourselves, what we put down as an engineer isn't understandable to the government, so it doesn't go through, so we then have to use a third party, then they take a chunk out of it, and we can't be asked with it. Yeah? We need to work on that. Finance packages, again, are available. I've had multiple companies, considering I'm the CTO, I've had multiple finance companies come to me say, we have a new novel way to finance for automation, for manufacturers. How do we get it? How do we get it to those manufacturers? How do we get it to help support machine builders? Yeah, I've had multiple of them. Which one do you select? Which one do we go? This is the company to use. Humanoid service robots, AMRs, AGVs are really interesting because they're changing the landscape of how we finance. So they are moving us from CapEx to OpEx, which is a really positive thing because we're looking at financing robotics in a different way, and it's challenging the SMEs to finance and look at the finance in a different way and hopefully de-risk it for them because it comes out of a different pot and they have to look at it differently. I have had, talking about finance packages, I've had recently a company who has a novel way of financing humanoid robotics. They've said, We have the vision. We can see that humanoids are coming in the next 5 to 10 years. They're going to be there. They're going to be in the factories. We have a novel way of financing humanoid robotics. Yeah, how do we get it to the people? Yeah, they've actually joined us as a member because they want to talk to people. They want to get it out there. And we want to avoid the last one. Yeah, we don't want to scare off the finance directors and CFOs when they get a horrible, great, big, complicated request for cash. Yeah, they just see an automation project as lots of risk, very complicated. How am I going to fund it when the production line goes in and it stops my current production? There's all these fears and risks for them. We need to help to stop that. So I've been in role 2.5 years now, and I've been in the industry a lot longer. And what's been really interesting, this culture question, although I've seen it being within the industry, but being in the role at Automate, this has come to a lot of these have come to the fore. These are conversations you hear more and more. Robots take jobs. No, they create jobs as the businesses grow. They might move jobs. Yeah, the guy who was earlier having to do all of the really complicated welding, or the simple welding, I should say, doing all of the welding of a fixture and doing all the long seams and everything else. They don't need to do that. Yeah, we can get a welding robot in that you can buy off the shelf today that does all the long seams and all the boring bits. Yeah, that welder with those skills can train that robot and adjust its welds, and then that welder can do all of the interesting bits and the complicated bits that robot isn't capable of doing. Yeah. We've talked about ROI, and we must repay in under 3 years. However, how many SMEs have you gone into and they've said, look at my machine, it's been running for 20 years, isn't it wonderful? Yeah, I've got a special room out the back that's got all the spare parts I've had to buy off of eBay because no one makes them anymore. And I've got a team of 6 people that keep it running because it breaks down every 3 weeks. But isn't it great? But you must repay the next one within 2 or 3 years. You go to Europe and you go into their factories and say, what's your best machine? And they'll go, look at this one, it's been in 6 months. It's producing 5 times the product that our machine in the UK is. It's a higher quality. Yeah, it's a completely different conversation. We need to change that. I've mentioned about projects paid by CapEx. We need to look at that and change that. There's lots of different ways to do this now. The return on investment calculations are quite often very, very simplified. We had our own conference a couple of months ago now within the vision industry, and we had a topic on return on investment. And it was discussed there that you can no longer just say, you've got a humanoid robot come into this factory, and we're going to take that person out and put the humanoid in. So the return on investment is the fact that was the hourly rate. It doesn't work like that anymore. We've got to go, well, that's for a start. That's one of the 3Ds, yeah, that role. It's horrible. Nobody wants to do it. So we're changing that person every 6 weeks. They keep leaving. So we're having to keep training someone to do that role. So the quality keeps going up and down. Because we keep changing, and we're probably using an agency, so their hourly rate is higher. And every time they go, we have to pay them more money to get someone in because they have to go and recruit someone. So return on investment should be a lot more complex, and it should then make the payback on robotics much quicker. And we need to work on that. We need to help these SMEs. It's interesting hearing some of the things that Ross said earlier as well about SMEs. They tend to be risk averse. They want to see tried and tested. We really find it difficult to get case studies. Yes, they're out there, and I know if we talk to the likes of FANUC and ABB, they've got case studies, but generally SMEs don't want to tell their competition down the road what they're doing, so they want to keep it quiet. We need those case studies. We need to be telling them, look, yes, we are one of the most innovative countries in the world. Yeah, we are leading the way on many measures for innovation and R&D, but a lot of what we're doing is tried and tested. It might be 95%, 98% tried and tested, proven technology. It's only that last little bit that you need because you've got a unique part within it, a unique operation within your process. And it's really, really important to get that message across. So what are we doing? So I'm not going to take any of Peter's thunder, but he's going to talk about the manifesto, which Automate UK is refreshing and redoing for 2026. And we'll put some of this into even more detail. Peter does a lot of government lobbying. He's on some advisory boards for the government, doing some great work in there. Does tackle the unions as well, which is really good, as he said earlier. I sit on some standards committees, so process packaging, but also, I don't know if anybody knows, it's really nerdy, AMT 10, which is the Robotics Standards Committee, all through BSI. So we're working very closely with government, and we're putting the industry's voice across. Yeah, we understand industry. We don't just want academia in there. We want a mixture of everybody. We need to give that voice. Hopefully everybody in this room knows about the adoption hubs. There's lots of nods, which is great. This is something that we've been supported since last year. Innovate UK has given some money, which is a mere drop in the ocean of what we need, but it's a starting point, and it shows that the government's changing its thought process. We need to work on adoption. We do have an idea of what's going on with that. Hopefully by the end of August we'll know exactly. I won't say anything because nobody's supposed to know anything. But yeah, we really support that. It's really, really important that that's supported and we work with that. It's really, yeah, it's the way forward. Yeah, we need to adopt. Part of that is some skills. We're actually working within adoption hubs with Cranfield Uni. And we're working to create some new training courses. There'll be level 7, yeah, so they're masters, but they're also standard on their own. And we're working with them to put 2 courses together, one on the strategy of adoption for SMEs, so senior management, how to strategize, how you adopt within the factory environment, and then essentials of, which is, again, at the level of operational management. It's about the nuts and bolts of how you adopt automation and some of the elements that I mentioned before. We don't think there's a problem with the technology. Yeah, again, everyone here, the skills within technology are there. Yeah, we can build machines, we can make products. Yeah, but there are issues with how we adopt them into factories, into SMEs, and we need to support them. On the skills front, on the early starters, we have a charity called Automate Best, which we give our member apprentices grants and bursaries, and we have a membership cluster as well. An apprenticeship cluster, which brings apprentices together to help them network and build network groups for the future. So we give them, say, grants and bursaries. What's really interesting is that out of all the things they could do with the money, yeah, they could go out down the, because we don't put any. There's no strings attached. They could go down the pub. They could go on a holiday. Yeah, they go and buy some new laptops, some new tools. The thing that they do the most with their money is buy car insurance. Because one of the biggest issues we have is how do these young people get to work? Yeah, not everybody's companies in London where they can travel to. Yeah, most companies are in a small town and normally outside that town, and they have to get there. Yeah, car insurance is really expensive. So most often we're told, "Yeah, I bought car insurance with it. Great, thanks ever so much. I can get to work for another year." Yeah. We're working on an end user membership, which should be announced and released at our show, the PPMA show, in September. And we want to work with them to give advice, guidance and networking within our current membership, which has predominantly machine builders. Although we all work together all of the time, yeah, we work with SMEs, we work with end users, we work with large companies, we work with small companies, there is always seems to be a disconnect. between us all. Yeah, there's a misunderstanding of what they want and what they need and how they work and what their issues are, and vice versa. And we need to break those barriers down. We want to do more networking between the groups. And finally, for me, another thing that we've created in the last couple of years are integrator standards. So this was something I was asked to do on day one, or actually day two of my time here, and was to create something for integrators, because we think they're a really, really important part of the industry. Yeah, someone who can take a robot that's been purchased and make it work within the application is really important. It's really important to give the choice of multiple different integrators. We've created two, one for vision integrators, one for robotics. And we want to set that bar. It's a fully audited standard. If you're a member, it's free to join. And we'll come out and we'll audit you. And it's about the quality of your project and your project processes. So we want to set that bar for integrators so they can say, here you go, we're certified, we've got a rubber stamp to say that we have the processes in place to hopefully create a good project. We're not promising that every project's going to work first time, because we all know that doesn't happen. But that is everything I've got to say.